I'm doing it!
I'm
Careful,
doing
SpongeBob.
it.
Careful, SpongeBob. Careful, SpongeBob. That's what's playing in my head when we play Repo because I'm a millennial. I have to quote SpongeBob every day.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Stretching. Let me get a lozenge so I do this.
A lozenge.
My brother and my dad are watching some horror movie downstairs. My dad was reading letterbox reviews, and it was like
Whoa.
some fucking zillennial letterbox review that was like, this is worse than capitalism and so sad. And I was like, wow.
That's what the review said?
No, it said it in like a better fucking zillennial way. Just use your imagination. I can't remember what it exactly it said. But it's like the typical like doomer.
Yeah. What movie is it?
It might be The Endless. I can't. It's something like that.
Never heard of it.
Tell me what happened.
Um, um, where am I?
We're in the
Was
cave.
that all one? Wait.
We're in the
Wait, wait.
cave. He found out that
We're in the
they're.
cave. When did it end last? Like before this past
He
one?
found out that they're Fuyo and
Yeah,
whatever.
right,
And
right, right.
Mooching was yelling at him like, "Oh, did you have so much fun watching us play a little
So,
act?"
yeah, they had a whole argument. Hua Chang was like, I guess I'll save you guys as well, but I just wanted to save my wife. Um and then Function and Mooching were both like, we don't trust this guy, let's run away. They did multiple things, like a fucking crazy Dead by Daylight chase scene.
Yeah.
And then they unveiled the statues which were all statues of Shaylan, and all these paintings were of Guachang with Shaylan throughout time, and Function and Mooching were like, this guy is a little nuts, a little crazy, what the fuck? And Shaylan's like, well, why don't we just talk to him or whatever? And Guachang's like, I told you not to go this way. And they're, I don't even know, man. This is just a nightmare of this scenario. It's like the worst miscommunication happening right now. Like, let's just talk, guys. Uh, and they, who did it? Someone
Mooching.
mooching made Shaylan like, um, what is it? What?
He put like a talisman on him that can do
Oh, it was a
simple
talisman. Yeah,
commands. It can't do like
yeah.
big things like the
So
Brocade
simple
Immortal.
commands. So he's making Chilean run away with them and run away from Huachang, and also like, yeah, I mean he's not saying anything because he can't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So Huachang is like very much thinking that Chilean's like saw all of this and was like, I need to get out of here type deal. I don't
Right.
remember where exactly we left off, but like at what
So
point.
I'll get to that in a second. Two things. One, Function repaired the sword that
Right.
shows you if someone's like their true identity. Two was Hua Cheng asked he got really pissed at the two of them, and he was really pissed, and he was like, is what you were arguing about on the mountain true? And then where we left off, I'll just read part of it and then get into it. He'd only taken a few steps before Feng Shin could no longer hold back a desperate shout. Hua Cheng? Hua Cheng paused in his step and tilted his head. Let His Highness go, Feng Shin forced out a plea. He's suffered enough. Don't. To him. Hua Cheng didn't reply. He came to Shilian's side and, with one hand on his back and one hand under his knees, swept him into his arms. That's where we left off. Hold on. Scout is already barking.
Great.
Shilian lay against Hua Cheng's chest. Even though they were sealed in those giant white chrysalises, he could see Feng Shin and Mu Qing's expressions. Feng Shin looked like he'd been watching a lamb entering a tiger's mouth, as if Shilian was going to be ripped apart and devoured, and he started yelling. Mu Qing had started tearing at the white silk with his teeth again, but the awkward angle meant his struggles came to nothing. Hua Cheng knew the pathways of this cave of 10,000 gods like the back of his hand. After many forks and turns, the two figures and their voices soon disappeared. Carrying Shilian in his arms, Hua Cheng moved deeper into the darkness of the cave's innermost dens. The only light around them came from the gently fluttering silver wraith butterflies. Shilian couldn't see the expression on Hua Cheng's face, but he could feel the tension in his body. Hua Cheng had held him like this in the past, but it was obvious that something had changed. He wouldn't even touch Shilian's neck or hands directly. Shilian kept eyeing Hua Cheng's face, trying to blink hard enough that he'd notice, but Hua Cheng kept avoiding his gaze. Hua Cheng took him into a chamber with a stone bed, where he quickly brought him and set him down. As he lay Shilian on the bed, he noticed something and checked on Shilian's back. They cast a spell on you? Shilian was overjoyed. He'd finally discovered it. Still, it had taken him incredibly long to notice that there was something off about Shilian, which just showed how badly Hua Cheng had been caught off guard. Shilian waited for him to remove the command talisman from his back, but Hua Cheng's hand paused before he touched the offending paper. In the end, Hua Cheng withdrew his hand and laid Shilian flat on the bed. Don't worry, Your Highness. I won't kill those two useless pieces of trash, for now, Hua Cheng said in a low voice, perhaps attempting to reassure Shilian, even though I'd really like to murder them. There was a layer of thick, soft, fresh hay on the stone bed. It didn't jab Shilian at all as he lay there limply, but he was so anxious that his insides were smoking. He couldn't understand why Hua Cheng wouldn't release him from the spell. Just as he was trying desperately to struggle his way out of its control, Hua Cheng reached for the sash around Shilian's waist and began to untie it. In an unfortunate coincidence, that was the moment when the command talisman on Shilian's back started to fade. He kicked out hard with one leg as an "Ah!" escaped his lips. His spasm looked like nothing more than the jerk of a dying fish twitching in its last attempt at life and objecting with no real power. Still, Hua Cheng froze instantly and withdrew his hand. I won't. At that point, Hua Cheng seemed to decide that his tone was too harsh, and that his actions might be scaring or repulsing Shilian. He backed away a few steps and softened his voice. His expression was cautious and resigned, but otherwise unreadable. Your Highness, I won't do anything to you, he said in a low voice. Don't be scared. Shilian finally understood. Hua Cheng still wasn't sure what kind of response he would receive from Shilian upon releasing the spell, so he was refusing to hear it altogether. Hua Cheng seemed to be holding back some sort of urge, and he once again assured him in a quiet tone that sounded like a vow. Your Highness, trust me. He said that exact phrase before, but this time all his normal confidence was gone. Shilian wanted to answer him, but couldn't, and he didn't dare struggle any more lest Hua Cheng's misunderstandings deepen. He could only lie there, flat and motionless, waiting patiently for the power of the command talisman to fade entirely. Seeing that Shilian had stopped resisting, Hua Cheng approached again, reached out, and gingerly finished untying Shilian's belt. Sanlong? Shilian called out in his mind. Shilian wholeheartedly believed that Hua Cheng would never take advantage of a helpless person, but this new development was completely unexpected. He couldn't help his eyes widening. Hua Cheng set about loosening Shilian's clothes, but he seemed to be avoiding touching Shilian's body, which slowed him down. It was a long while before Shilian's outer robes were removed and the inner robe followed. A wraith butterfly perched on the curve of Shilian's shoulder, and a warm, tingling feeling crawled over his skin. It was only then that Shilian realized the state he was in. His skin was red and slightly swollen, even cracked in some areas. But when the silver butterfly perched on him, his injuries had started to heal. This was frostbite he'd gotten from tumbling all over the frozen mountain. But Shilian hadn't noticed it, since he was fairly used to pain at this point. If he had frostbite, then he had frostbite. Even if he had noticed the injuries earlier, he probably would have left them to heal on their own. But Hua Cheng knew even better than Shilian himself where he was hurt, and he wouldn't let it go. He would address Shilian's injuries no matter what. Shilian's thoughts were interrupted when Hua Cheng took his arm and raised it. There were even more patches of frostbite on his hands and feet, and many of the spots were bleeding due to all the frantic running and pulling he'd been subjected to recently. Shilian wasn't afraid of pain, but he was ticklish, and in spite of himself, fragmented memories of years past surfaced in his mind. The trembling, heated hands of a boy in a dark cave, random panic touches, irregular breathing, and racing hearts. At first, these memories were hazy and incredibly faint. Shilian had packed them away and tossed them into a corner of his mind long ago. But as the memories began to resurface, they had a surprisingly different taste, and it made Shilian want to hold his head and scream, especially with Hua Cheng right in front of him, doing very nearly the same things he'd done once upon a time. Shilian's face and mind were burning. He was afraid Hua Cheng would see his distress, but Hua Cheng didn't look at him at all. He fulfilled his promise completely and never crossed the line. He kept his head slightly turned away, averting his gaze from Shilian's half-exposed white shoulder. Suddenly, a jeering voice rang out from behind Hua Cheng. "Hua Cheng, you madman! You madman! What do you think you're doing to His Highness? You're disgusting!" Hua Cheng whipped his head around towards the voice. Shilian looked past him to see who had reached the entrance of the cavern chamber. The speaker was Mu Ching, with Feng Shen beside him. Despite being so recently wrapped in giant chrysalises, they had somehow broken free and found this place. Their faces had gone from pale at the scene inside the cavern, and Shilian's face paled in turn. What an awful sight! Feng Shen pointed at Hua Cheng, then pointed at Shilian with his clothes peeled halfway off. It was a long moment before he could squeeze out, You, let him go right now." Hua Cheng quickly pulled Shilian's clothes back in place. "You useless piece of trash dare hunt us down," he said coldly. "I think you're tired of living." "Keep your filthy hands off him. Does the ugly toad want a taste of swan meat?" Mu Ching sneered. "Never mind dreaming of it for 800 years. You can hope for 1,000 more, but don't even think of touching a single one of His Highness's fingers." Shilian's heart dropped, but while the comments annoyed him, he could sense that something was amiss. What was wrong with those two? They shouldn't have spewed such malicious words, even if Hua Cheng had beaten them to a pulp earlier. It was especially uncharacteristic of Mu Ching. It seemed like they were purposely trying to provoke Hua Cheng. But there was no reason for that. They knew they couldn't beat him, so what did they want? Moreover, their tone subtly pointed the spear in Shilian's direction. It was like they wanted to stir up confusion, as though they wanted Hua Cheng to do something to Shilian in a fit of anger. Sure enough, darkness flashed over Hua Cheng's blanched face, and he threatened softly. "Since you both come seeking death." Shilian couldn't see the naked murderous intent in his eyes. And horror filled him. "Don't!" he cried. Too late. Hua Cheng unsheathed his scimitar, and Ming flashed cold. Feng Shen and Mu Ching were both startled by the strike, and they reflexively looked down at themselves. But they saw no visible injuries on their bodies. Just a moment later, before they had the chance to breathe in relief or retaliate, the upper halves of their bodies split from their lower halves and fell to the floor with a thud. Blood spurted and gushed, spilling over and flooding the ground. Shilian had never expected things to go like this. He lay limply on the stone bed, completely dumbstruck. Hua Cheng had actually sliced Feng Shen and Mu Ching in half.
What the fuck?
Yeah, could you... I almost wanted to end there last time. They weren't
No.
dead yet. They tumbled to the ground. One gritted his teeth, the other yelling furiously. It was a sight too tragic to witness. Hua Chung's expression was frigid as he sheathed his scimitar. His face was dotted with only a few drops of blood, but the tinge of red complemented the aura of evil surrounding him and made him look even more striking. Hua Chung stood in the pool of blood for a moment, then turned to walk towards Shilian. Shilian stared with wide eyes at Hua Chung's grim approach. By the time Shilian snapped out of his stupor, Hua Chung had already reached his side. He clutched one of Shilian's hands and pulled him up into an intense embrace. "How can I possibly let go?" he whispered. Shilian couldn't speak, being held so tightly in his arms, and then Hua Chung whispered something else in his ear. Shilian's heart was pounding so wildly he thought it might jump out of his chest, when he suddenly felt his body release. The command talisman that Mooching stuck to his back had finally been released. Even though Hua Chung had said he wouldn't let go, he loosened his embrace just a little and let Shilian leave his hold once he released him from the command talisman. Shilian took a deep breath, then leapt to his feet and charged over to the pool of blood on the ground. "Function! Mooching! Are you two all right?" Mooching's injuries were more severe. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, and the light in his eyes had faded. But Function still had breath, and he gripped Shilian's hand tightly. "Your Highness." Shilian clutched his hand in turn. What? What do you want to say?" Function swallowed a mouthful of blood and managed to grit out, "Watch out for Hua Chung. Don't go near him. He's a monster." It seemed that Function had used up all that remained of his strength to give Shilian that warning before he died. Unexpectedly, the expression on Shilian's face gradually calmed. "Monster?" He let go of Function's hand and rose to his feet. "I wonder, is he more of a monster than you two?" That shocked Function. Without pausing for a response, Shilian drew Fangshin and pierced Function's heart, nailing him to the ground in a flash. "Your Highness, you..." Function sputtered in shock. But before he could finish, he stopped breathing. Shilian withdrew Fangshin from Function's heart and shook it clean of blood before he retreated to Hua Chung's side. He kept his sword pointed at the corpses on the ground for a while. All the while. "Now that the blood has been spilled, there's no need to keep talking through those skins." A jeering laugh echoed from the ground. Mooching's body had been sliced in half at the waist, but its head twisted around to show that it was the one laughing. Its upper half was sprawled face down, so even if it turned its head, its cheek should still have been pressed to the ground. But the corpse's head kept turning until it was fully backwards, and lifted it, laughing at Shilian all the while. As suspected, these were not the real Function and Mooching, but imposters from who knew where. The real Function and Mooching were still trapped in those giant white chrysalises trying to gnaw themselves free. That was what Hua Chung had whispered when he released Shilian from the command talisman. Their faces were pale not from shock or horror, but because they weren't human to begin with. Shilian flashed his sword. Function and Mooching both smiled chillingly and replied in unison, "As you wish." They then melted into puddles of something that resembled thick blood. Hua Chung moved to shield Shilian. The two bloody puddles flowed across the ground and merged into one, bubbling like they were boiling. Soon the pool formed into the shape of a man. A chill spiked up Shilian's spine from the waist to neck as he watched that indescribable mass contort itself and grow, bit by bit. Soon Function and Mooching were completely gone. The person who had replaced them was a tall, slender young man dressed in white. Judging by his size, the young man seemed to be about 17 or 18 years of age. He was wearing a mask, half of it crying, half of it smiling. While his face couldn't be seen, a youthful, crisp, bright voice came from behind the mask. "How are you, Shilian?" he asked warmly. Shilian's lips twitched unconsciously, and his mind went numb. Hua Chung had been shielding him, but now the Ghost King raised his blade and lunged at the man. The white-clad man was dauntless in the face of Ming's wicked sharpness, and the blade missed him by mere millimeters as he sidestepped. In the span of a second, he flashed behind Hua Chung. He reached for Shilian like he wanted to touch his face. Silver light streaked, and Hua Chung blocked that hand, shielding Shilian once more. Hua Chung's voice was cold. "Keep your filthy hands off him." He threw the warning right back at him. The white-clad man's right hand was severed by Ming's slash, and the limb fell to the ground. But the man seemed like he'd barely noticed the injury. He simply shook out his expansive sleeve to briefly hide the severed limb, then shook the sleeve back again. A new hand had grown in the old one's place. You good, bud?
Yeah.
Let me open this. His fingers curled into claws, and he aimed directly for Hua Chung's right eye. It all happened in under a second. Hua Chung dodged just as fast, but the attack still left 2 bloody scratches on his cheek. For the first time, Hua Chung faced an opponent he couldn't overtake in speed. His gaze turned sharp, and he changed tactics on the spot. He called forth millions of wraith butterflies, and they swarmed the man in a frenzy. The myriad butterflies wrapped the white-clad man inside a large, shimmering silver chrysalis, but that likely wouldn't last long. Hua Chung was about to grab Shilian when the silver butterflies shrieked and exploded into sparkling powder. Seeing the subtle change to Hua Chung's expression, as so many wraith butterflies were destroyed at once, Shilian knew that this wasn't good. The white-clad man had blown apart the wraith butterflies, and now he was hidden within the shimmering silver powder that choked the air. His newly grown hand struck out once more, aiming again for Hua Chung's right eye. This time it was Shilian's turn. He pulled out Fangshan and slashed. His strike didn't just chop off the white-clad man's hand, nor his entire arm. It very nearly bisected him entirely. Seizing the chance, Hua Chung called out, "Your Highness, let's go." Shilian knew they shouldn't get entangled in this fight, and that they should quit while they were ahead. He retreated, and the two rushed out of the cavern together. They bolted down the dark tunnel, unhampered by any obstacles. "It's him! He really didn't die!" Shilian exclaimed as they ran. Hua Chung led the way. He was faster and dashed easily, setting up butterfly formations and silk traps along the way to trip up any pursuers. "He might not be the original." Shilian came to an abrupt stop and clutched his head. "No, I can feel it. He's the same. Not only is he still alive, but he's even stronger than before. Something let him be reborn. How else could he transform so easily into Fengxian and Muqing? It's very difficult to impersonate heavenly officials. It should be nearly impossible to create fake skins of them." Hearing his tone go frantic, Hua Chung also stopped and turned back. He took Shilian's hand and gripped it. "Don't be scared, Your Highness. He might not really be stronger. There's another possibility. He could be very familiar with Fengxian and Muqing. That's why he could create fake skins of them. He must be someone all of you—" Before he finished, Shilian's gaze fell to the hand that was clutching his own. Hua Chung's words and expression both froze. He paled and withdrew his hand, tucked it behind his back, and turned to continue onwards. Shilian, however, didn't follow. "Sun Lang," he called out. Hua Chung's body stiffened. He paused in his step, but didn't look back. He only acknowledged, "Your Highness," in a careful, calm voice. "A lot just happened, and everyone's a little flustered and confused," Shilian said from behind. Hua Chung answered. "Everything is still kind of confusing. But I want to take the time to ask you a question," Shilian continued. "I hope you'll answer me honestly and seriously." "All right," Hua Chung agreed. "Who exactly is that noble, gracious, special someone?" Shilian asked solemnly. Hua Chung's finger, the one that was tied with the red affinity knot, subtly twitched a few times. He was silent for a while before he eventually answered, "If Your Highness already knows, then why ask?" Shilian nodded. "I see. So I didn't misunderstand you. It really is true." Hua Chung didn't respond. After a pause, Shilian asked, his tone flat, "Don't you want to know how I feel about this?" Hua Chung inclined his head slightly. It was like he wanted to glance back, but was too afraid to look Shilian in the eye. Only the 2 streaks of blood on his cheek could be seen. "Your Highness, would you please not tell me?" His voice cracked as he asked. "I'm sorry," Shilian said. "Something like this has to be made clear." Hua Chung didn't need to breathe, but he still sucked in a deep breath. Although his face was awfully pale, he still smiled and replied courteously, "That's true. It's for the best." He was like a criminal on death row, waiting for his sentence. He closed his eye. And his eye didn't remain closed for long. Soon it snapped open once more, as a pair of arms suddenly encircled him from behind and caught him in a forceful embrace. Shilian buried his face into Hua Chung's back, but he didn't speak either. Though nothing was said, it was enough. It was a long time before Shilian felt the man he was hugging turn around. Hua Chung fervently returned the embrace, engulfing Shilian in his arms. From above his head, Shilian heard Hua Chung's staggering response. "Your Highness, you really will be the death of me." Just then the sound of an explosion echoed through the deep recesses of the cave. A blinding white light flashed through the darkness, followed by a series of shrieks from the silver butterflies. They both looked up, and their expressions changed. Shilian loosened his grip on Hua Chung's sleeves. "Let's talk later," Shilian said. And thus the two continued on, except now they were running hand in hand. Shilian's face was still hot, but he spoke with forced calm, like nothing had happened. "Sanlang, how did you discover that the Function and Mu Qing who approached us were dummies? Where are the real ones?" Hua Chung was in essentially the same state. "I left behind wraith butterflies to monitor the two useless pieces of trash. How could there be two more of them?" "Don't worry, Your Highness. They're fine. They won't die." "Then we have to release Function and Mu Qing from the chrysalises," Shilian said. "It'll be bad if he finds them while they have no way to fight back." "This way. Follow me," Hua Chung answered. The Cave of 10,000 Gods was indeed his territory. Even when they came to crossroads that branched into multiple different paths, he immediately and accurately knew which one to take. It wasn't long before they returned to the area where they'd left Function and Mu Qing. Even from a distance, they could hear those two flinging accusations at each other and yelling. "Why did you tell His Highness to run? Now you've done it. He's been carried off." "What? Should I have had him stand around to be butchered?" "Huh? You just wanted him to distract Hua Chung and lead him away. Am I wrong?" Shilian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Both men in the giant white chrysalises on the wall were simultaneously gnawing at the silk and yelling at each other, and they were so surprised when they saw him return that they forgot to spit out the white silk dangling from their mouths. "How did you escape?" Shilian's bamboo hat was still on the ground where he dropped it, and he quickly picked it up and tied it around his neck. The heavy white silk released Function and Mu Qing before retreating into the shadows. The two of them tumbled to the ground, beaten black and blue. When they saw Hua Chung emerge from behind Shilian, their faces twitched. They probably thought they were in for another round of beatings, or that things would otherwise get rough again. However, when Function reached out to grab Shilian's arm and pull him back, Shilian grabbed hold of Hua Chung first. "Your Highness?" Function was flummoxed. Hua Chung was already starting to lead the way once more. "Guga, this way." As if those two dared to follow him. "Your Highness, why are you still with him?" Function questioned. "Didn't I tell you he's lost his mind?" Mu Qing said. "He's completely enchanted." Shilian didn't bother to argue. He just gently, but very firmly, held on to Hua Chung. "There's no time to explain now. Let's get out of here first. There's an enemy after us." With Shilian holding him like that, Hua Chung's eye began to twinkle. A moment later he smiled. "I suggest you both hold your tongues and follow. I'm in a good mood, so I won't fight you, for now."
Right.
Drink. Dude, the fucking confession scene. We finally got to it.
Finally. The way that he was not calling him Gaga during that whole thing.
Dude, it's insane.
Oh my god, my headphones, help.
Function and Mu Qing were left in complete disbelief at this display. Complicated expressions plastered on their faces. They just couldn't comprehend why Shilian still walked so nonchalantly beside a terrifying devil who had stalked him for over 800 years with a mind full of unspeakable thoughts. It was like playing with fire and delighting in the burns. Mu Qing was skeptical, but eventually chose to focus on the other point. "You said there's an enemy here? This Cave of 10,000 Gods is his territory, so what kind of enemy could there possibly be? Did this enemy give him those scratches on his face? I doubt there are many out there who could injure Crimson Rainsought Flower." "It's White No-Face," Shilian replied. At the sound of that name, Function and Mu Qing's faces both changed, and they followed Shilian without another word. They knew well that Shilian could joke or lie about anything, except that one man. Shilian would never make light of him, nor would he ever mistake him. Even though they'd just been fighting each other to the death in this Cave of 10,000 Gods, now they were fleeing like mad together. "Just what is going on?" Mu Qing demanded. Shilian gave them an account of the white-clad man who had stolen their appearances, and they were both stunned. Disguised as us? How is that possible? It's true, Shilian said. Everything happened so fast, and I didn't get a good look, but it was absolutely you two at a glance. Function was dumbfounded. But how can White No-Face still exist? Didn't the Emperor kill him? I wouldn't be surprised if that thing can't be killed so easily, Mooching said. Maybe it died a second time, but I'm sure it would revive itself, given the right chance. That reminded Shilian of something, and he turned to Hua Cheng. Sanlang! Right after we made it to Mount Tonglu territory, you woke from your stasis with a start and urged us to hide from something. Did you sense him then? Hua Cheng gave a slight nod. Yes. I knew it, Shilian mumbled. We chose the path to the west after that, but he was the one on the eastern path who'd killed thousands of ghosts. He's been reborn, but he's still a little weak. He needed to use the nefarious creatures coming to Mount Tonglu as a stepping stone. Now he's recovered and might be even stronger than before. After all, he was the world's first supreme ghost king. As they walked, Mooching noticed something amiss. Your Highness, do you know where he's taking us? I don't think this is the way out. It was Hua Cheng who replied. Of course this isn't the way out, because there is no way out right now. Function was astonished. What? Isn't this cave your territory? You can't be lost. Of course not, Shilian replied in Hua Cheng's defense. White No-Face is blocking the path to the cave's exit, Hua Cheng explained. If you think you can defeat him in your current state, then by all means, don't follow me. I won't stop you. Go right ahead. Function and Mooching were both from Shenle, of course, and just like Shilian, that creature had left an indelible shadow on their hearts. They didn't want to face him unless absolutely necessary. Function gazed upwards. Can we punch through the top of the cave to get out? The snowy mountain is above us. Do you want to start another avalanche? Hua Cheng mocked. Unfortunately, they had left the Earthmaster shovel with the Yin Yu in case of an emergency. Even if they did have it, none of them had studied how to use it, so they wouldn't be able to dig an escape route without making a racket and drawing attention. Then why are we running around aimlessly? As long as we run around aimlessly, he'll chase us and we can lure him away from the exit, Shilian explained. And then you two can use that chance to escape. Mooching immediately caught the issue. Wait, you two? You mean you want to split up? One group is the bait to lead him away while the other group escapes on their own? Exactly, Shilian said. The Emperor must be informed that White No-Face has reappeared in the world. Once you both escape, find a way to notify the heavens. Wait, Mooching cut him off. You've already decided who's going to be bait and who's going to leave? Shilian shook his head. I didn't decide. White No-Face did. Mooching understood and didn't say another word. There was nothing they could do to choose who was pursued. Among their group, White No-Face would certainly be most interested in chasing Shilian. I will stay with you to face him, Function declared without hesitation. In an emergency, Mooching had always been the one Shilian sent back to make a report, and Function had always stayed behind to assist him. It seemed that ancient history was about to repeat itself. But then Shilian glanced at Hua Cheng. Thanks, but there's no need. Sanlang will stay with me. How can he be the one to stay? He... Function blurted. Hua Cheng's brow furrowed ominously, but Shilian only replied, I trust him. Although his voice was gentle, he was firm in his stance. Function was stunned in spite of himself. Your Highness. Shilian patted his shoulder. You two go together. Mount Tonglu has closed its gates, so it's hard to say whether you'll even be able to get out to spread the word. Besides, don't you still need to search for Lanchang and the child? Function's face turned glum at this reminder. A wraith butterfly emerged from the engravings on the vambrace around Hua Cheng's wrist. Follow it, he said. The two looked at Hua Cheng, then at Shilian. In the end, Mooching said simply, You two watch yourselves. With that, he turned and hurried after the silver butterfly down the tunnel. A moment later, Function followed. The four thus parted at this fork in the road. As Shilian watched their retreating backs, another series of rumbling explosions echoed in the distance. The pair exchanged a look. He's here, Hua Cheng said darkly. Lead me, Shilian said. The white-clad man had come after Shilian, as expected. To ensure he was kept at a safe distance, Hua Cheng set up wraith butterfly formations at various points in the caves to monitor the situation and slow their pursuer down. Every time an explosion went off and the wraith butterfly shrieked, Hua Cheng's expression grew grimmer, and Shilian's heart ached. They wound around corner after corner, until finally they reached a chamber. Julianne couldn't help but sigh. I can't believe it. So many silver butterflies have been lost. While the wraith butterflies didn't have a good reputation in the three realms, Julian saw them as nothing but sweet, adorable little spirits. He couldn't help but feel for them. They ceaselessly launched their suicidal attacks, just to delay the enemy a few moments more. But Hua Cheng only snorted. His gaze seemed to penetrate the thick rock walls, and he said, "Don't worry. If he kills one, I'll make 10 more, fast and furious as a storm. I will never back down. We'll see who's left standing in the end." Julian's heart skipped a beat for some reason, and he thought, "Oh no, this is bad." Although Hua Cheng had only displayed it subconsciously, Julian really was quite weak to his aggressive, rebellious confidence. Another moment passed, and Hua Cheng slowed his pace, seeming like he'd received some sort of signal. He turned to Julian. "He's been led away. Those two are almost out." "Great," Julian said. "Now we can take our time to come up with a strategy." There's no rush now," Hua Cheng said. "He's been left far behind. We can hide here for a while and think of a battle plan." They both trailed off, and an awkward tension suddenly bloomed between them. This wasn't the kind of awkwardness that stemmed from embarrassment. Rather, they were both feeling strangely shy. With the creature hot on their tail, Function and mooching with them, the feeling hadn't been nearly as obvious. But although Julian had said, "Let's talk later," now that later had arrived and they'd caught their breaths, he had no idea what to say. Julian coughed lightly twice to clear his throat, then scratched his cheek with a finger. No matter what gesture he made, nothing felt quite right. He wanted to speak, but he was worried that whatever he said would sound too abrupt, or too silly, or like he was trying too hard. In the end, he just hoped that Hua Cheng would say something first. However, Hua Cheng's expression was just as strained. On the surface, he looked like he might have been seriously thinking through their battle plans, but it was hard to say whether that was true. The hands clenched behind his back were trembling slightly. They walked past one particular divine statue. Most of the carvings in this cave of 10,000 gods were about the same size as the man himself, but this one was rougher in craftsmanship, and it was shorter by half. When Julian passed it, he casually peeled off the veil covering its head, and his eyes lit up. "Sanlang, did you carve this one too?" Hua Cheng looked over and fell silent. It took him a moment to reply. "It was from my beginner years. Gaga, stop looking at it." That was clearly the truth. This divine statue was quite ugly indeed. Even though it was easy to tell that the sculptor had done his utmost to carve the perfect form he saw in his mind, his wish had been left unfulfilled due to the limits of his skill. While it wasn't cockeyed or crooked, the little figure was disproportionate in scale, and smiled like it was mentally challenged. Despite all that, the sculptor still had managed to include every single detail without fault. Julian could easily tell that this was a god-pleasing crown prince statue. Its ears even had red dots for coral pearl earrings. Julian silently covered his mouth and turned away. He rubbed hard at his face in an attempt to seem natural. Hua Cheng didn't know what to say, so he pleaded again as he tried to cover the statue with its veil. "Your Highness, please don't look at it any more." "Don't misunderstand. I think it's really cute," Julian hastily assured him. But then he realized, wasn't he the one Hua Cheng had sculpted? If he called this thing cute, wasn't he basically calling himself cute? It'd be incredibly thick-skinned of him to lie so blatantly. Julian couldn't help but laugh out loud. Seeing him like this, Hua Cheng bowed his head and lowered his lashes as he started to chuckle along with him. As they both laughed, much of the nameless jittery air cleared away. They continued onward and passed by another statue that was lounging on a stone bed. Its entire body was covered with a layer of thin, smoke-like white satin. Julian was very curious and was just about to pull off the white veil over the divine statue's body when Hua Cheng unexpectedly seized his wrist. "Your Highness!" Ever since they entered this cave of 10,000 gods, Hua Cheng had mostly been calling him Your Highness. Julian looked at him, and while Hua Cheng let go of his wrist, he still seemed a bit uncomfortable. "I already know it's a statue of me. I still can't look?" Julian asked. "If Gaga wants to look at statues, then the best one I sculpted remains to be seen. I'll show you some other time. Don't look at any of the ones in this cave anymore," Hua Cheng said. Julian didn't understand. Why? I think all of the divine statues in this cave of 10,000 gods were carved really well. Really. It'd be a shame if I never got to see them. Which reminds me, those murals. "I'll go destroy them," Hua Cheng said promptly. Seeing that he really planned to head off right now and do that, Shilian grabbed him hastily. Don't! Why destroy them? Just because I saw them? Fine. I'll tell you the truth. I've only actually seen a few, like the one depicting the Shangyuan Heavenly Ceremonial Procession, and the one of us in the army. I didn't see most of them because Function and Mooching wouldn't let me, so I have absolutely no idea what you painted. Don't destroy them. Only then did Hua Cheng turn to face him. Really? Shilian held on to him and replied with the utmost sincerity. Really, if you don't want me to look, I won't. Hua Cheng seemed to quietly sigh in relief. Then he smiled. They're no good anyway. If there's something you want to see, I'll just paint it for you on the spot. This reaction made Shilian even more curious, but he didn't want to spur Hua Cheng into destroying those precious murals, so he could only push down his own desires. After taking a few steps, Shilian suddenly frowned. Something's not right. What is it? Hua Cheng asked. Shilian turned to look at Hua Cheng. White No-Face. Why would he come to Mount Tonglu? Perhaps he hasn't fully regained his powers, and he wants to use the kiln to be fully reborn in this world, Hua Cheng replied. If that's true, would it mean he's not currently a supreme? Shilian wondered. That's not entirely impossible, Hua Cheng said. When White No-Face had dropped his disguise as Function and Mooching and attacked, his abrupt appearance had been both shocking and terrifying. Shilian's first reaction was to assume that their opponent couldn't be defeated, so he'd grabbed Hua Cheng and fled. But they hadn't actually fought him directly for long, so they couldn't precisely gauge White No-Face's current strength. Was he putting on a front, or was he stronger than he seemed? Nothing could be determined from a rushed exchange of blows that only lasted for a few seconds. I assumed he'd gotten stronger when I saw those 2 fake skins, Shilian muttered. But maybe he hasn't completely recovered. Maybe he's currently at his weakest. Otherwise, why would he come to Mount Tonglu? Maybe I can give it a shot. Give it a shot and try and take him down. Good. I'll go fight him, Hua Cheng immediately replied. Shilian instantly snapped out of it and hastily said, No, don't face him directly. My giving it a shot will be plenty. Supreme Ghost Kings would normally never face each other in combat so easily, as evidenced by the way ship-sinking Blackwater and Crimson Rain Sought Flower had been able to coexist in peace. This was because Ghost Kings weren't like heavenly officials, whose profiles were well known to anyone who cared to keep track. From their strengths to their parameters of their powers, sorry, it's like cut off. The parameters of their powers to the size of their temples and number of worshippers. But Ghost Kings hid their true strength just as they hid their pasts. They possessed no knowledge of each other's abilities, and no one knew the potential consequences of a fight between 2 supremes. This encouraged them to maintain the balance at all costs. There's no need to worry, Hua Cheng said. The victor hasn't been decided yet. Surely Gaga doesn't believe I would let you face him by yourself. Shilian shook his head. It's not that, Sanlong. It's that we're not the same to him. He won't kill me. I can swear it. Why? Hua Cheng questioned. After a moment of hesitation, Shilian chose not to explain. He only said, You don't know how terrifying that creature is. Hua Cheng cut him off. Your Highness, I know, he said grimly. Only then did Shilian remember that Hua Cheng had also joined the Shenle army, and personally experienced the Shenle battlefield. He'd seen the tragedy with his own eyes, the fields piled with corpses. But Hua Cheng didn't know. He hadn't personally witnessed that horrific battle between Jun Wu and White No-Face. He had never crossed paths with White No-Face directly. Having considered this, Shilian shook his head forcefully. It's not that I don't trust you, it's just... I don't want anything to happen to you. Hua Cheng's eye twinkled at this. A moment later, he smiled. Gaga, don't worry. I'm already dead, so it won't be easy for me to die again. Besides, have you forgotten what I told you before? Unless he finds my ashes, he can't do anything to me. Shilian had forgotten entirely that the ashes were a factor. He quickly said, Wait! Everything else aside, Sanlong, have you stored your ashes somewhere safe? A long time ago, Hua Cheng replied. Shilian nodded, but a moment later he couldn't help but double-check. Are you sure they're properly hidden? That the hiding place is secure enough and won't be found? To me, it's the safest place in the world, Huacheng said leisurely. Shilian didn't think there was anything absolute out there, however. You're completely sure, he pressed. Huacheng smiled cheerfully. If their hiding place is destroyed, then there's no need for me to exist either. Of course I'm sure. Although Shilian was rather concerned about what no need to exist meant, they weren't in a safe place, and there could be ears listening in. It wasn't the right time to probe this subject deeper, so he let it go. But it made Shilian want to ask Huacheng just how he died. Shilian really wanted to know, but he didn't know how to ask. When mortals died, whether their soul could remain on the corporeal earth depended on their obsessions and attachments. In most cases, anguish and resentment were the strongest fixations. To become a supreme ghost king, one's obsession would have to be extraordinarily intense. So Shilian was afraid that Huacheng wouldn't be able to handle it if he asked about his death. It might cause him pain, like stabbing an old scar, and Shilian himself might not be able to bear the details either. These past 800 years, how had Huacheng endured them? A horrifying thought struck Shilian, and he was instantly awash in a cold sweat. He quickly turned to Huacheng. "Sanlang!" "What is it?" Huacheng answered. Shilian's fingers twitched slightly. "I have another question I want to ask you." "By all means," Huacheng replied. Shilian stared at him. "Other than in Shenle, did you encounter me at another place or time at any point in the past 800 years? Huacheng slowly turned his head to look at him. "Regretfully, though I never gave up and did my utmost to find you, I did not." Shilian pressed him. "Really?" Huacheng looked him squarely in the eyes. "Really. Why does Gaga ask?" Shilian sighed an imperceptible breath of relief and forced a smile. "Nothing, it's just... The way I passed my days in the earlier years wasn't the prettiest sight. I was a mess, and very much a failure. I just wouldn't have wanted you to witness that." Huacheng laughed. How could that be? But Shilian didn't laugh at all. "It's not a joke. I really was quite a failure." Hearing this, Huacheng withdrew his smile and turned solemn. "That's fine, too. Your Highness, didn't you say yourself—" "Me?" Shilian was confused. "What did I say?" "To me, the one basking in infinite glory is you. The one fallen from grace is also you. What matters is you, not the state of you," Huacheng recited languidly as he gazed at Shilian. He blinked meaningfully, cocking an eyebrow. "I feel the same way." Shilian was stunned speechless for a good moment. Then he quickly slapped his hand over his face to cover it, feeling like his whole head was burning up. Did I say that?" "You did," Huacheng insisted. "Gaga, don't deny it." Shilian used his arm to block his face. I don't think so." "Gaga, do you want to see the proof? I'll find it for you," Huacheng said. Shilian's head shut up. Did you? No way. Sanlang, have you been recording everything?" I'm joking. "I honestly don't believe you." "Gaga, trust me." "I don't trust you anymore." The pair came to a fork in the road. Suddenly a breeze blew in. Huacheng tilted his body to shield Shilian, raising an arm as if to protect him. It wasn't a strong breeze, and it didn't call for anyone to block it, but Huacheng's action had come completely naturally. The wind passed, leaving strands of hair aflutter, tangled in the same way as Shilian's thoughts. Shilian noticed that Huacheng's expression and the contours of his face were cold when he wasn't looking his way. Beautiful in his nonchalance, Huacheng didn't even realize he'd moved without hesitation, as if protecting Shilian was innate to him. "Sanlang," Shilian blurted again. Huacheng tilted his head to look at him, and only then did he flash a smile. "What is it, Your Highness?" Shilian felt that Huacheng probably didn't notice himself smiling. A clear and powerful voice in Shilian's heart told him that this man really saw him as a god. Shilian's fingers clenched furtively. "Once we're out of Mount Tonglu, there's a lot I want to tell you." Huacheng nodded lightly. "All right, I'll look forward to it." "Have Fengshen and Muqing escaped?" Shilian asked. "They're already out," Huacheng replied. "And White No-Face?" Shilian asked. "He didn't catch up to us, and he didn't go to stop them. Where is he now? How far is he from us?" Hua Chung's face changed before he could finish, and he lightly pressed 2 fingers against his right eyebrow. A moment later, he said, "He disappeared." "How could he disappear?" Shalene asked in shock. Hua Chung remained calm as he focused on searching. "He's just gone. Completely vanished." This was impossible. Not even a ghost could disappear into thin air while surrounded by wraith butterflies in this cave of 10,000 gods. "Let me see," Shalene blurted. He gripped Hua Chung's shoulders with his hands and went on tiptoe to touch their foreheads together. Hua Chung rested a hand on Shalene's waist, then hesitated as if he was going to pull away. In the end, his hand stayed where it was, and pulled Shalene even closer. The scenes that Hua Chung had seen moments earlier flashed before Shalene's eyes. The white-clad man strolled through a stone cavern. Countless wraith butterflies rushed him and wrapped him in a shimmering human-shaped chrysalis. In an instant, those butterflies were engulfed in a crackling explosion of silver light, shattering them into a burst of sparkling glitter. Once the silver light faded, the white-clad man was gone. After that, Hua Chung's right eye brought Shalene elsewhere in the caverns, sweeping through countless other tunnels. However, the white-clad figure was nowhere to be seen. Shalene was puzzled and pulled away slightly. Could he have left? Now that White No-Face had seen Shalene, he would stop at nothing to harass him. Others might not understand this, but Shalene knew it all too well. "Maybe our earlier speculation was correct," Hua Chung said. "His top priority is to use the kiln to regain his supreme status, so he left ahead of us." Hua Chung's voice was right in Shalene's ear. He only came back to himself when he heard those words, and he realized that Hua Chung's face was cupped in his hands. Shalene had pulled him down, making the taller man bend slightly at the waist. Shalene quickly let go. "We have to stop him," he cried. Their mission was to prevent any candidates with the potential to become supremes from reaching Mount Tonglu. They'd run from the white-clad man earlier, but now that the situation was clear, they rushed through the countless divine statues in search of him. Before long, they reached the spot where he'd disappeared. Other than some divine statues, there was not a single thing to be found. Silver shards of light covered the ground, and the little butterflies that hadn't been completely destroyed by the shockwave were fluttering their broken wings. Shalene bent down. Even if he didn't know whether it would help, he still wanted to cup them in his hands. Just then he heard Hua Chung's voice from behind him. "Gaga, come over here. Here by my side." His voice was laced with suppressed anger, but the rage wasn't directed at Shalene. Shalene looked up and saw that Hua Chung's blazing gaze was trained on a divine statue ahead of them. The statue was covered head to toe with a white veil, but the general shape of it could be made out. One section protruded sharply. It seemed to be pointing a sword. A patch of caustic red at the sharp tip of the sword's point was spreading, staining, soaking the white silk veil. There was blood on the sword. Clearly there was something strange about this divine statue. Perhaps the original was no longer under the white silk and had been replaced with something else. Shalene leapt to his feet and stood at Hua Chung's side, pointing the sword Fengshin at the strange form. Hua Chung wore a dark expression. He gave a wave, and the white veil fell with the motion. Shalene's pupils shrank. It was a divine statue of Shalene beneath the white veil, a god-pleasing crown prince statue. There was a sword in one hand, a flower in the other, and a smile on its face. But there were traces of blood on that smile. The blood had come from the sword in its hand. A boy dangled there, pierced through. The boy had bandages covering his head, and blood covering his body. It was Lang Ying. That's the end of that chapter. What a ride, right?
That was a whiplash.
It was
like
every
what
2
the
seconds
fuck?
they're like cuddling, and then it's like the worst horror of all time. Did you think Function and Mooching were dead at the beginning? Did it get you?
No.
Did you think they were fake at the beginning? Like when they
No.
got hit, did you think they were fake?
No.
You thought he actually hit them?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's funny.
that was crazy.
Yeah.
That was a riot.
I know. And that's all one chapter the past 2 days we've read. Past 2 times we've read.
I feel like worn out.
Oh, buddy. It's
From
just because
that.
this whole book is gonna make you feel that way. Next chapter is the last chapter before the flashback.
Okay.
So we'll get to
They, like-
an epic cliffhanger.
can't believe how long it took for them to get to confession.
What do you mean? Like, before this or just in this chapter?
No, before this.
Oh.
So,
Listen, I'm surprised they did it before the fucking last book. I'm surprised it wasn't saved till the fucking end. They're so fucking repressed.
right, yeah, yeah.
Hua Chang was fully convinced that he's disgusting, and like when Mu Ching was called him disgusting, he stopped punching him and was like, "I won't argue with you about that point."
Yeah,
And he drew himself all disgusting and disfigured. He thinks he's ugly and
bro.
gross, and then he was like shaking and stuff. And then Shilian is just like totally like everything goes over his head, and he's like he like took a chastity vow and is just like a fucking nun. He just doesn't understand any of it. He doesn't think about it, and then all of a sudden he's thinking about it, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Why am I getting a boner in this coffin?"
Wow.
Yeah, thinking about the cave, the fucking cave, with the fucking flower.
Yeah, I was
He's
literally
crazy
like,
for that.
no.
He just realized that was him, and he's like, "Oh my god, I have to kill myself."
Yeah,
While he's being
yeah.
chased.
That's literally what it's like having a crush.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, oh my god, I have to kill myself
It's
now.
so real.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
both of them are saying that in their heads.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. The whole time they're like, I need to kill myself.
Yeah. The fact that the second that Shilian brings up White No Face, the two like fall in line. They're like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah,
let's go."
yeah,
And the fact that even though Hua Chang was angry, he promised Shilian that they won't die.
yeah,
He loves,
yeah.
even though he's mad at them, he loves his wife.
He loves his wife, bro. That was crazy. I feel like
I'm so
overwhelmed.
excited for this flashback. And Shilian was so scared that Shilian was so scared that he met him at other points. He's like,
Yeah,
no, no, no. I was embarrassing and cringe, and I sucked. But yeah, Hua Chang was searching for him for almost 800 years.
they make me sick,
Yeah,
bro.
after
They,
his second banishment, Hua Chang lost track of him and was searching for him, and that's why in season 2 when he gets buried alive there's a wraith butterfly like looking around right outside where he gets fucking buried, but Hua Chang never
mm,
gets to find him, and Shilian has to stay buried for like however the fucking long. Yeah, it's fucked,
ugh,
my boys. That's why
they make
that's why
me
it's so
sick.
funny to imagine Shilian randomly just ascending third ascension, like he ascended in his sleep, like he didn't even fucking do anything, he just randomly ascended, and you picture fucking Blackwater on that day being like calling Hua Chang on the phone being like, "You're not gonna fucking guess who I just found." Like, "Hey bud," and that's why he fucking meets him in the hay cart, and he's like acting so nonchalant. He's like, "Hey, I totally haven't been
Oh
looking for you for
my
lifetimes."
god.
It's
So
crazy.
funny. It's so
My
funny.
boys, my beautiful boys. Do you want to hunt more monsters? 'Cause that's what I'm doing.
Yeah,